For years, Amy Brown kept quiet about the drama behind the cameras of Alaskan bush people, but now, she's breaking her silence. In a shocking revelation, Amy has finally admitted there were 5 people on the show she absolutely could not stand, and trust me, the names on this list will leave you stunned. Let's dive into the bombshell confession that's shaking up the bush people world. After years of family feuds, survival challenges, and the harsh, untamed wilderness, Amy Brown has finally spoken out. In a revelation that has stunned both longtime fans and detractors alike, the matriarch of the Brown family, the reality TV stars known from Alaskan bush people, has named the 5 members of her family who have, in her own words, become her worst nightmares. What follows is a sprawling tale of broken trust, icy betrayals, and the unexpected toll of life under the glaring spotlight. Truth, trust, and survival. For over a decade, Alaskan bush people has followed the Brown family's attempt to live off-grid in Alaska, facing brutal winters, sparse supplies, and waves of external pressures from both media and legal entities. Amy Brown, once the glue holding the family together, has often spoken of the necessity of unconditional love and unity. But in a recent exclusive interview, she flipped the narrative. Unity failed. She named 5 individuals, relatives, children, and close kin, as her worst nightmares, citing betrayals, moral failures, and what she described as unforgivable acts. Her revelations have rocked the fanbase, raised questions about what viewers didn't see, and haunted the core trust that many believed was unbreakable. This is what she said and what it might mean for the family going forward. Bam Brown, the eldest son, long considered one of the family's strong pillars, emerged as the first name on Amy's list. The mother of 9 described Bam's actions over the past 5 years as calculated distance. She claims that Bam manipulated her emotionally, promising support during her battle with cancer, then slowly retreating when times got tough. Amy alleges he withheld crucial information about legal settlements and donations intended for her medical care, choosing instead to channel resources away from her without her knowledge. Furthermore, she alleges that Bam oversaw the monetization of her image in ways she did not consent to, using her likeness and personal testimonies beyond what was agreed upon in contracts. Amy says the betrayal was not just financial but deeply personal. It's not just about money, it's about feeling used when you thought family always had your back. Matt Brown has long time been the show's de facto survivalist, the voice of rugged determination. But Amy claims that Matt's commitment to family came with caveats, especially when public image, legal liability, and personal interest were involved. According to Amy, Matt often made decisions on behalf of the family without consulting her, even decisions with serious legal and financial implications. She describes one incident in which Matt was approached by potential investors seeking to develop land near the Brown compound. Matt allegedly initiated negotiations without informing Amy, and later closed the deal with terms she found exploitative and that compromised the family's autonomy. Moreover, Amy said Matt had become increasingly distant emotionally, choosing to align with others in the family on major decisions, leaving her isolated. When I needed someone to lean on, I was met with silence or worse, assumption, she said. She characterized this behavior as betrayal of trust. Bear Brown, the youngest son, appears to be the most conflicted of all. Amy Brown's public accusations against Bear carry a sense of heartbreak, as she expresses disappointment in what she perceives as Bear's moral failings. Amy claims that Bear has been careless with promises to show up, to help, to protect. In her telling, Bear repeatedly committed to duties, caring for property, spearheading tasks during her illness, only to abandon them or make plans that left her vulnerable. More seriously, Amy accuses Bear of leaking sensitive family issues to outside media sources, reportedly trading private family pain for personal exposure. She alleges that Bear sought fame at the cost of family integrity, prioritizing social media and public attention over internal loyalty. The betrayal here in Amy's mind is not just about letting her down but actively broadcasting the family's fragile moments for personal gain. Rain Brown, Amy's daughter, has always been a gentle presence, or at least one perceived that way by the public. Amy's criticism of Rain is perhaps the most painful, because she says Rain was once her closest confidant. In her bombshell confession, Amy stated that Rain turned into what she called a messenger, someone who carried word to the others, sometimes misrepresenting what Amy had said, sometimes portraying her in a harsher light. Amy insists that Rain distorted her words in small ways that grew into large misconceptions, feeding rumors, making conflicts worse, and occasionally taking sides. She also accused Rain of jealousy over media attention or over the relative spotlight cast on Amy, or over affection from other family members. Amy claims that Rain, in search of validation, adopted an adversarial stance instead of offering understanding. Gabe, one of the sons, occupies a complicated space in this narrative. Amy says that Gabe's involvement in the business side of the show, his public projects, and his aspirations sometimes crossed lines she believed were sacred. Amy claims Gabe misrepresented certain financial records to both her and to external advisors, or at least failed to fully disclose arrangements. She says certain business deals Gabe entered into undermined agreements the family had made about property, image rights, and media control. Perhaps the harshest of all allegations, Amy accuses Gabe of helping orchestrate internal alliances designed to isolate her, the matriarch, from decision-making, especially during times when her health made her vulnerable. Amy describes feeling manipulated, fellow family members she trusted working behind the scenes, making choices without her, sometimes even lying by omission. What prompted the bombshell? Amy's decision to go public was not sudden. Friends of the family say her illness and recovery period forced reflection, peeling back layers that many had helped to conceal. She reportedly tried numerous private conversations, counseling, and family mediation, but says these attempts were ignored, minimized, or twisted. Her turning point, she says, was discovering legal documents she claimed she was never shown, papers involving property rights, image licensing, and income from episodes filmed during her illness. On discovering that certain financial distributions or legal liabilities had been handled without her signature, Amy finally felt compelled to expose what she calls years of betrayal. Public response, shock, skepticism, and support. Fans and media outlets are scrambling to assess the validity of Amy's claims. Social media has lit up. Some are defending her, others are casting doubt, and still more are expressing pity at what seems to be a family torn apart. Supporters argue that what Amy is saying sounds consistent with the secret pain she often hinted at on camera, scenes where she was emotional, where she seemed excluded from decisions, where her health struggles appeared to have shifted power dynamics in the family. Critics, however, say that reality TV often dramatizes tensions, and that without documents or legal disclosures, these remain allegations which, while possibly true, need verification. Some suggest this could be a strategy for attention or leverage in legal disputes, or even for renegotiating contracts. Legal and financial implications. If Amy's claims hold water, there could be serious legal consequences. Unauthorized use of her likeness or image could violate both contract and statutory rights, depending on the contracts in place. With property rights, if deeds or licenses were signed without her consent, or if she was intentionally left unaware, there may be grounds for claims of fraud, misrepresentation, or undue influence. Also, the idea that financial statements or distributions were withheld or misrepresented could lead to civil litigation among family members or from Amy against those she alleges violated her trust. Interpersonal fallout and long-term impact. Even if no legal action emerges, the personal cost seems heavy. Amy describes losing trust, protection, and the emotional support she needed most during her cancer treatment, times when she felt physically and spiritually weak. Within the family, those named have begun responding. A few have released short statements expressing sadness and surprise, others have denied wrongdoing, or said Amy misunderstood or misremembered some events. Still others have refused to comment altogether. The public spectacle threatens both the brand built around Alaskan bush people and whatever unity remains in the family. Sponsors, network partners, and viewers may look more closely at who is really in control and what has been happening behind the scenes. Power, voice, vulnerability. Amy Brown's revelations aren't just a family matter. They touch on themes of power imbalance, aging, illness, voice, and the often invisible labor mothers do in families, even powerful ones. For someone in Amy's position, being a matriarch, being constantly present, sometimes silent, can mean that resentments accumulate unseen. Her narrative drives home a truth that even those who seem to have public influence can feel unheard. That being physically present doesn't always mean having agency. That love and obligation can sometimes be demanded, misused, or weaponized, even within families. There are multiple ways things may unfold. Amy could pursue legal action, seeking transparency in contracts, financial records, property ownership, perhaps even bringing in third-party auditors. The family might attempt mediation in the public eye, settling grievances, crafting a joint statement, or attempting to repair relationships. The network producing Alaskan bush people may respond, either by opening their own investigations, facilitating reconciliation, or shifting how the show handles internal family conflict. The public's perception of the show may change. Viewers might begin to wonder what is real and what is edited, to re-evaluate scenes in light of Amy's claims, or to demand more accountability from reality TV stars. From matriarch to accuser, Amy Brown's Bombshell has peeled back a family's mythos: the rugged self-reliance, the unity against nature, the stoicism in hardship. What it reveals is more fragile, more human: vulnerability, betrayal, despair. The 5 people she named, the people she once trusted above all, are now cast in her worst nightmares. This story isn't closed. Lies and loyalties, contracts and confessions, emotional wounds and possibility for healing, all are still in motion. Whether Amy's revelations lead to reconciliation or ruin remains to be seen. But already the message is clear: even in the wildest, most remote places, family is complicated. And some nightmares come not from the cold, but from those you thought would stay. To understand why Amy Brown's recent revelations carry such weight, one must revisit her path before the fame. Born and raised far from the limelight, Amy spent most of her early years quietly in circumstances that were far from glamorous. When she married Billy Brown, she embraced his vision of a self-sustaining family, a clan that would thrive without dependence on modern society. For years, Amy was the center of stability. She cooked, tended to her children, and managed the 1,000 unseen tasks that kept the family afloat. While Billy chased big dreams and the children handled the wilderness, Amy was the beating heart that ensured everything worked behind the scenes. Yet even as the show began, viewers often noticed a tension. Amy rarely dominated the screen. She was quieter, softer, often framed as the gentle matriarch who offered wisdom, love, and the occasional tear. Fans adored her humility, but in that humility lay a growing vulnerability, one that her recent claims suggest was quietly exploited. A mother's expectations, a family's fracture. Amy admits that she once believed her children, despite their quirks and differences, would always rally around her. "I thought," she said in her startling interview, "that no matter what storms came, we'd face them together. I was wrong." Her disappointment is magnified by the family's public image. For years, the Brown clan branded themselves as unshakably united. Their tagline was survival, togetherness against the odds. The wilderness was their enemy, not each other. But in Amy's eyes, the real wilderness began at home. When cancer struck Amy in 2017, it forced the family into a new kind of survival. No longer was it about food or firewood, it was about hospital visits, treatment schedules, and financial strain. This was when Amy began to see cracks. Promises made were not promises kept. Affection turned conditional. Support gave way to calculation. She claims she was not only fighting for her life but also for her dignity, caught between her illness and family members who sometimes treated her more as a burden than a beloved matriarch. The 5 Nightmares Deeper portraits Bam Brown, the master of control. Outwardly, Bam is often seen as calm, collected, even responsible. Fans nicknamed him the voice of reason. Yet Amy describes him as a strategist who always wanted the final say. She claims his obsession with control of money, decisions, and even family narratives turned him into a shadowy figure pulling strings behind closed doors. "He didn't shout, he didn't fight," she explained. But silence can be just as sharp. He withheld love when it mattered most. Matt Brown, the rogue adventurer. Matt's charisma once made him a fan favorite. Always ready with a survival tip, a bold scheme, or a risky experiment, he embodied the thrill of bush living. But Amy's account paints him as unreliable, reckless not just in the wild but in relationships. She recalls being left uninformed about key family decisions, describing him as a son who ran ahead and didn't bother to look back. Bear Brown, the showman known for his wild antics, Bear brought energy and entertainment to the show. But Amy claims his thirst for attention often came at her expense. Leaking stories to tabloids, exaggerating family drama online, these, she says, created unnecessary chaos. What hurt her most was the sense that Bear chose an audience of strangers over the privacy of his mother. The confidant-turned-rival Rain was Amy's closest daughter, a bond Amy says she treasured. But what began as shared secrets and whispered support allegedly twisted into misrepresentation. According to Amy, Rain's need to feel relevant led her to distort their conversations, pitting siblings against their mother. It wasn't just betrayal, Amy said with sorrow. It was betrayal dressed as love. The diplomat with secrets Gabe has long been portrayed as the peacemaker, the sibling who smooths over tensions. Yet Amy now paints him as a quiet conspirator, someone who masked ambition with a smile. She accuses him of failing to disclose financial dealings, of signing agreements that reshaped family assets while she was too ill to challenge them. He made me invisible, she said with a pen stroke. The revelation has left fans divided. Social media platforms are flooded with hashtags like #StandWithAmy and #ProtectTheMatriarch. Some argue that Amy is finally reclaiming her voice after years of being sidelined. Others insist her account must be weighed against the show's history of staged drama. I believe her, one fan posted. You could always see in her eyes that something wasn't right. Another wrote, sounds like a setup for another season. If she was really betrayed, why now this mix of empathy and suspicion highlights the blurred line between reality and reality TV. For viewers, it's difficult to separate performance from lived experience. Discovery, the network behind Alaskan bush people, faces an uncomfortable choice. If Amy's claims gain traction, they may need to reframe the show or address the accusations publicly. Should they support Amy, they risk alienating the other family members still central to the show. Should they ignore her, they risk accusations of silencing a woman who has endured cancer and public scrutiny. Either way, the bombshell has forced executives into the spotlight as much as the Browns themselves.